Oh my God. Oh, we're live. Hi, Robert. Welcome to Venture with Grace.
Hey, how are you doing?
I'm okay. I have so many announcements I'm gonna make later today. It's flooded. But anyway, so to start the show, first of all, welcome. You're the OG of me, the I guess like the tech media and industry in general. Before we fully start our podcast, I want to give a quick shout out to our amazing sponsor. This episode is brought to you by Nebius, the ultimate cloud for AI innovators. Nebius provide AI infrastructure you can count on, combining reliability and speed with flexibility and engineering support unmatched by hyperscalers. AI leaders like Meta, Shopify, and Higgsfield already partner with Nebius to run their AI workloads. Plus, venture-backed startups can save up to 150K on compute costs when they apply for access. Visit nebius.com or nebius.com/startup to learn more. Okay, so to start the show, I would love to let the hi Tony. I want to give a quick shout out to anyone who comments. So I want to start with I feel like you're the OG of the I guess like the tech media in general in the space. And I think the first time I heard about you was like like Tim Ferriss talk about it in his like podcast or book about like when he was like trying to promote his book. Like he kind of like reach out to you and then he tried to he find your wife in like South by Southwest party and like the rest
Yeah,
is
he came to our party, and that
yes.
he actually targeted my party. He put a bunch of people he wanted to meet on his whiteboard, and I was one of them. Back then, I had a highly famous blog, and so I was one of the big influencers in the industry. Now I'm just another face in the crowd, but which is a big crowd now.
I think you're very, very humble. Like, you don't get like, hundreds of millions of followers like by like doing nothing. So also say hi to Krishna. So anyway, so I want to talk about like, how do you all get like started in this thing? So like a few of your I wouldn't say accomplishment, but like things that you're famous for is like I think you drove the first Tesla. Am I correct?
I didn't
So
drive. I got a ride with Elon in his first production Tesla, and I was live streaming it on a Nokia
mhm.
phone. I also had the first ride in the BMW i3, the Fiat 500,
Oh wow.
first Mercedes AI car. So you know, I had a famous blog for a long time. In fact,
Mhm,
from 2000 to 2004, I had the only blog in Silicon Valley where you could launch a company, really,
mhm,
and that got me started and got me a job at Microsoft and all that. And led me to launch many companies. I was the 79th user of Instagram. Siri was launched in my house. The Matic robot company last year was launched in my house, and I could go on for an hour about all my firsts. But it started with that blog back in 2000 when I
mhm,
started it. Now there's a lot of places. I mean, when I started blogging, there was no TechCrunch, there was no Product Hunt, there was
mhm,
no Tech Meme, there was no X, there was no Facebook, there was no TikTok, there was no LinkedIn,
mhm,
there was no Instagram, right? And so I was very early in a whole lot of ranges, and that led me to travel the world. I've been 80 countries. I've
mhm,
visited a lot of the R&D labs around the world
mhm,
and study the future. I wrote 8 books about the future that
mhm.
were highly reviewed. So, yeah.
So I want to start with like I was like listening to your other podcast. By the way, maybe we start doing like a quick recap of Tree Hacks because I think we met at Tree Hacks. I'm pretty sure at some point I met you in other places in the past, but I feel like Tree Hacks is the most recent because like you know
Yeah, that was just
like
last Sunday.
yeah,
Right? So,
exactly.
seems like
Wait,
a year ago already. So much
I
stuff
know.
happened
Yeah,
for
it
you.
seems like a year ago because it was like such a I feel like it was such a efficient and like also like a super, super compact experience that where you can see all the youngest like people or like the most like cracked hackers on like building the next thing. So like what are some of your observations or like takeaways from tree hacks?
Oh, just the scale of really interesting things being built by young people.
Mhm,
I mean, there was a guy making a cane for blind people that would,
Yeah, they won. They won too.
yeah,
Yeah.
there was companies doing simulations for firefighters. There was companies building new kind of app for glasses that'll help old people remember where they left everything. Where's my keys?
Mhm.
Where's my drugs?
Mhm.
Where's my phone?
Mhm.
There was just, there was what, 1,000 people there and
Mhm.
about 350 different teams, and they were all really interesting, and
Mm.
it just shows you AI is speeding everybody up. You can now
Mhm.
build something much more substantial in a very short period of time with AI, and I think you're going to start seeing more and more innovations and more things deeper
Mhm.
into our society because of what's going on.
For
Yeah.
sure. I have 2 things that, like, I wanna kind of, like, chat with you about. One thing is, like, I feel like you're, like, I think many things that you mentioned earlier about, like, all these cars and stuff, like and then also on the podcast you were on the other podcast, you were mentioning about, like, the glasses, so I feel like hardware is, like, one of the big theme as well as, like, in the tree hacks, there's, like, the blend people using, like, the blend stick and, kind of, like,
Yeah, they
fillings and
built a little haptic robot for the cane,
right.
and then you
Yeah.
put an iPhone on there that senses the world and uses a multimodal model to understand, "Oh, you're about to hit a post or something.
Yeah.
Let's haptically navigate that
Mhm.
blind person around the post and tell them, 'Okay, this
Mhm.
is the right way to go.'"
Yeah, for sure. I feel like I wanna chat about, like, what are things that you're seeing that, you feel like will be the next generation of iPhone?
Ooh, that that's a deeper one,
Mhm.
because we are heading into a world of glasses. I mean, I should pull out my
Mhm.
Vitchers here somewhere. They're somewhere around here. And
Are you a Reality Pro user
oh
or
yeah, I
you're
have
the
the Apple
Red
Vision Pro. Yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah, Apple Vision Pro.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
and and those the problem only problem with them is they're too heavy,
Mhm.
and they're too expensive, right?
Mhm.
$3,500 is I understand why it's that expensive because it's really a Macintosh on your head,
Mhm.
but the cost has to come down and the device has to get less than 100 grams so it
Mhm.
doesn't bother you on your face. You can wear it all day long. Right now, I
Mhm.
get a headache after wearing it for an hour, and we're not using it, right? So it hasn't
Mhm.
yet gotten to the place where we can use it for everything, and that's still a few years away. But glasses are coming. I'm studying a lot what Apple's doing with a little camera.
Mhm.
Uh,
Mhm.
uh, I mean, think about a camera like this Insta360, which
Mhm.
launched in my house, by the way.
Mhm.
Um, if you put an AI computer in this and cut it in half and make it small,
Mhm.
now it can see everything and it can help me
Mhm.
with my computer. If I take it and while I'm washing dishes and put it there,
Mhm.
it can talk to me and watch how I wash dishes, which is real important for training robots of the
Mhm.
future, right?
Mhm.
So there's OpenAI is coming out with a camera like this. That's going to be a little camera that you put on your desk and talk to it, or maybe wear it with a pendant or something like that. Right? Although, that's a little freaky still for people, and that's
Mhm.
that's the other thing I do is I really study new technology. And then I do a lot of consumer research, like,
Mhm.
wearing, I have a friend device here, right? And wear this around town and talk to people about it and travel around the
Mhm.
America a lot, talking to people about it. What do you think about this? What freaks you out about it?
Mhm.
What does it help you? Would you be attracted to this? And they're starting to shift. I'm seeing
Mhm.
more and more people buy the Meta Ray-Bans with a
Mhm.
camera on it and a microphone and an AI computer somewhere involved that can talk to you and understand what you're seeing, so it can help you read a
Mhm.
menu in Spain or something, or
Mhm.
translate somebody, or uh, get navigated around a city that you don't understand, or
Mhm.
understand more and more about the world. And so I study how fast people are moving. Right now, I'm interviewing a lot of Waymo customers and talking to a lot of people who are using robotaxis, whether they're Tesla or Waymo or Zooxis, to understand how fast is that moving. And it's starting to move. People are starting to change their belief. 10 years ago, when I asked questions like, would you ever get in a car without a steering wheel? People would say, hell no, right? Now, Tesla is already making a car without a steering wheel, and they're about to bring that to the world. And we'll see how fast that grows and how fast that's accepted, and who rejects it, what regulations repel it. And yeah, that's sort of that kind of consumer research is why I was able to write books that really predicted the future pretty well. Because most people in the tech industry don't do that kind of thing. They don't go around the world and get into people's homes and understand their lives. And I was blessed to be able to do that in 80 different countries. So
I love that. Speaking of that, you should travel to where our podcast goes. We're in 110 different countries, but I think 80 countries to be physically being there, it's like another level, right? So like I'm curious about what are some core lessons that you've learned actually through these like traveling, and then tell us about the books that like when you're actually writing a book, you mentioned about you interview like the Waymo people, and like can you describe like how is like the research being conducted, and then how does it kind of like work?
yeah, I go around and went to Branson, Missouri, and sat in the rocking chairs in the Cracker Barrel and was looking at people using their phones and talking to them. And I'm how many people have been to Branson, Missouri doing that? Not many. And when I travel, I'm always sitting next to people, so I always talk to them, and that gives me research that very few people get to do, because the more people you talk to, and this is why I'm on X Audio Spaces so much, because the more people you talk to, the more you understand what people are doing, how they approach technology, how they reject it, how they're freaked out about it, and how they're excited about it. What are they seeing that it's changing their lives, right? And how and then I know so many people in the tech industry, and I have, I don't know, 70,000 people on my X list that I can watch what's going on and how they're reporting it. And then I go to a lot of parties and events, conferences in San Francisco, and meet with a lot of people there, particularly like marketers and strategists and stuff like that, to understand what they're seeing as well. So I have a really wide view of the world. It's not very deep. My friend Adrian Kaler he built the computer vision system for the first Waymo car, and he can write on the whiteboard math equations for how an autonomous car goes through an intersection. I can't do that. I'm not deep like that, right? But I'm very wide. I've been all over the world and understand patterns at a very deep level. In fact, I'm building a new kind of newsreader for X to let me see patterns even in a better way, right? So, yeah.
I have a few questions on this. One is like, since I feel like you have a huge audience on everything, and then you were like the OG bloggers.
Sometimes huge. If Elon reshares me, it gets really huge.
Right. So first of all, like, how do we get Elon to reshare anything? Well, he reshared this podcast, like that would be great. But so I'm just curious about like, how first of all, like, how do you really create hits? Do you feel like in the media space is about creating hits, or like do you feel like it's about like consistently showing up and then something will pop off?
I mean, it gets down to building a brand, right? You can certainly take off your clothes and get hits, right?
Oh God. I don't think this is that kind of podcast, by the way, guys.
I've taken off my clothes 4 times on the internet, and it does get hit.
God.
I guarantee you. But it doesn't build the audience you want, right? Which is, for me, I want smart people who care about the future, right? So if I'm going to get those people to engage on me or share me or follow me or whatever, or buy my books or come to my speeches or whatever, I have to show up with something that nobody else has. right? I have to show up with insights that nobody else has. That's why I built the lists on X. I have lists of 8,000 companies and about 50,000 people in the AI space, all categorized. So I'm watching them right now. So I can watch the world go by and see patterns and bring value that the others can't see. And then I'm visiting a lot of robot companies. I'm going to China in May. I speak at a lot of things and visit a lot of startups and interview a lot of entrepreneurs. I'm doing another interview in an hour, right? And that lets me bring value to my followers and readers. Yeah.
What in your opinion, so like you mentioned about like unique insights, like first of all, like when you are actually gathering the information from like the interviews, I think sometimes it's like really hard to like using like logic to summarize something. Like I feel like I just hear about something like over 4 times and then I kind of like, or like I kind of collect what resonate with me, right? So like it may not be the fact. So because like when I was tracking, so I launched a list called Smart AI 100 last year.
Yeah.
It's like so in September, it was like predicting the next wave for like a C2 Series A company who was gonna do well. And then since our list launch, a lot of the company on the list got like huge fundings, like Jen Sparkle raised over 300 million after our list launch. Well, 268 or like something like that, something crazy after our list launch. And Higgsfield raised like 150 mil after our list launch. Like several raised 2 rounds from like Sequoia and everything else, like over like 100 mil or something collectively after our list launch. So a lot of company after our list launch raised money. And I feel like when I was like making the list, like partially, like in my opinion, I remember the Genspark and Higgsfield because they're like kind of consumer driven app. But on the other hand, in the statistic of like people voting, like by the way, it's rated by like top VCs and the top founders, and then in their exclusive network, they kind of recommended the people that they like. Each person can get like a few nominations, and so through the nominations, I feel like the trend that I'm seeing is a lot of like consumer stuff. But in reality, when I was like literally like summarizing from like collecting the data, it was like 50% dev tools. So I think like the trends, like I feel like because I'm talking to people so much, but I can only retain the information that I want to retain. So in terms of like speaking of like, you're writing books as well as like you are having so much output yourself, how do you really like kind of process the information that you kind of like consume to actually summarize it into trends?
I'm pretty good at translating nerd
Mhm,
into English,
mhm.
right? And then,
Are you a technical person, or like do you feel like you're
well, I worked at a computer programming magazine. I never learned
right?
how to program, so I'm not a
Mhm,
technical. Like I said, I'm not deep like Adrian Kaler is. I can't write math equations on the
yeah.
whiteboard for how an autonomous car goes to an intersection, but I can talk to Adrian Kaler, understand how how he works,
Mhm,
what his code does, and translate that to English.
mhm,
Now, it's funny. Grok can actually do that better, or
mhm,
any of the LLMs, Chat GPT. They're really good at explaining things.
mhm,
If I see a technical post that I don't understand, I'll go to Grok and click on the three
mhm,
buttons on the Grok button, and then ask it, "Hey, can you please explain why this is important?" And explain it to me like I was a 9-year-old, right?
mhm,
And it does. It takes a very technical AI paper that has a
mhm.
lot of math equations and a lot of language that people don't understand,
Mhm,
convert it to something that everybody can understand, right? And that's what I did in the books to explain why this new movement
mhm,
is so important. And I wrote eight books on different movements. Um, you know, I don't know. I just
mhm,
try to say, hey, this is important, and here's why, right? And try it myself.
mhm,
And have something to say about it. I can't try 8,000 companies, but
mhm,
I try to keep up to it. And also because I'm watching everybody in the AI space. I mean, these are a lot of them are people who have PhDs and went to Carnegie Mellon or MIT or University of Illinois or Cambridge University, so over in
mhm,
UK or something like that. I get to see them, see what they're talking about, see how they're reacting to new technologies,
mhm,
and see a pattern, and then I can reshare that and say, hey, this just happened. Kling just came out with a new model, or Minimax just came out with a new model. Everybody's talking about it. Here's why it's important, or they're all using it on their cloud bots. So I get to see a very wide pattern. And yeah.
How do you like, I know that you also build your personalized AI tools. How do you kind of like use AI to subtract the information? Because I think right now we're in like an information overload era. Like everything could be information. And I feel like there's too many tools as well. Like I feel like I'm overwhelmed by just like random tools. And then like yesterday I was like chatting with my
I'm
friend.
overwhelmed just by posts. I mean, on my screen right now, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7,
Yeah.
8, 9, 10 new posts, right? Just there. And
Yeah.
that's too much to pay attention to for anybody. I pay attention to it because that's what I like to do.
Yeah.
When I worked at when I was going to school at San Jose State as a journalism student, I ran the Associated Press wire machine, and
What is
when
that? What is Associate Press
I
machine? By the way,
wrote
the other Robert, we're gonna address your question soon. Okay.
yeah. The Associated Press wire machine connects all the newspapers in the world.
Mhm.
So if somebody in the New York Times files a story, it gets shared on the Associated Press wire machine. This was 20 years ago or
Mhm.
back in 1992 when I was working at San Jose State's newspaper,
Mhm.
and I ran the wire machine. So when O.J. Simpson was found not guilty, there
Mhm.
was 700 stories just about that from all the
Mhm.
newspapers around the world, because everybody had a report. A lot of people had journalists at the courtroom and stuff like that, and they were all filing stories. I said, I want that. I want the Associated Press wire machine. Now X Pro with my lists is way freaking better than that. Now it's too much. Right. So now I've built an AI. I'm building an AI, and that'll get turned on, a new kind of news reader that the AI goes through all my lists and finds patterns, like finds all the jobs that are being reported, or finds all the companies that are getting acquired, or finds all the companies that are getting funded, right? And can go through. There's about
Mhm.
150,000 posts a day that go through my list, right?
Mhm.
AI can read them all. I can't. So,
Mhm.
and it can see and analyze them and build a report. I've been posting reports about OpenClaw, right? It can go through all that, find all the people talking about OpenClaw, and write a report about it. And so I'm constantly talking to this new AI that Braden Labanji built. He built a cognitive architecture that works way better than Anthropic Claude or ChatGPT or Grok or any of the ones that you've seen. It actually sits on top of other LLMs, but it just it gives better answers. It hallucinates far less, if at all, and it analyzes things like a human does, but it can analyze them at scale. Right?
Mm.
I can't do analyzing at scale. I can't read 150,000 posts a day and have any useful brain cells left anymore. Right? So the AI
Um,
is helping me analyze, figure out what's important, write a report. Now, by me watching real time, I wish I could show you my screen. By watching
if
real
you want
time,
to show, you can show. There's a present.
uh, I'll worry about that later. But I have X
Yeah.
Pro with columns. Each column is a list, and
Mhm.
they're all moving by. And I have the world's news here, so I can see what's happening in
Mhm.
Iran, what's happening in Mexico. Right, Mexico is sort of in a civil war with their drug cartel right now. I can see, new pattern, new
Mhm.
thing. Then I can talk to AI about that pattern. Oh, can you
Mhm.
write me a report on what's going on Mexico? Right, and
Mhm.
that AI is going to lead to a new kind of personalized news, which is going
Mhm.
to be very powerful. And so now
Mhm.
I'm talking to entrepreneurs who are building world models. Well, how could I shove a script over your world model and make a TV show? Right. Well, that's coming. That literally just in the past few weeks, all of our cameras shipped a world model with an API. So now I can shove a script into the world model, make something, right? Uh, Notebook LM doesn't yet have an API, but my
Mhm.
tool can create a report for copying into Notebook LM. Now you have a podcast, right?
Mhm.
So it's a new world coming.
Yeah,
It's
I feel like I listen to Notebook LM on every kind of like, um, At this point, I feel like I listen to the fake podcast more than the real podcasts sometimes,
Yeah,
like
because it can be personalized and deeper,
yeah, it's a
right? And
lot easier to digest a lot of the really condensed information, like, I would throw in, like, a PDF, and then I just kind of summarize it, like, perfectly, and I feel like it's, like, a lot easier to digest. A lot of the information was just, like, too hard to understand. Um,
yeah,
speaking of
right.
that
For instance, right now I could have my AI, hey, write me an economist style
mhm,
article on what's going on in Mexico. They can
yeah,
read all my news feeds, right? Because I have all the world's news on a list. I have all the tech journalists, all the regular journalists on lists.
mhm,
Can read all of that, find all the stories about Mexico, write a report, copy that over to Notebook LM. Now it's talking to me about what's going on in Mexico, and it's very deep. It's very good.
when you're selecting the journalists that you wanna follow, like, how do you kind of find these people that you really want to follow? The another question I had was, like,
I
um
first of all, I'm trying to be complete, not about me.
mhm,
My lists are complete. They're not biased, just on what I like,
mhm,
right? So my world news list has all news, all like Fox, NBC, Al Jazeera, New York Times, ABC News, right? It has all of them. If I
mhm,
find a new one, I put it on the list, right? So now I have a complete list of what's going on in the world right now.
mhm,
Then I can put the AI and tell it my bias, right?
mhm,
And say, okay, tell me, what is the right wing saying about this issue? What's
mhm,
the left wing saying, right? I can add my human bias or my human need into it. This is what's going to be powerful about news in the future. You're just going to be able to talk to your thing, and it'll just tell you what you need to know based on who you are and what you care about. If you only care about the Canadian hockey team, it can do that, right?
mhm,
And it can do that from a sliced and diced. So you can say, I just want to know about the goalie,
mm.
and it can
I
write you a report about what the goalie is all about, right?
mm. I'm curious about, like, how do you so, like, since a lot of the founders are listening, so, like, a lot of our, podcast, audience are, like, founders or VCs, in your opinion, what's the best way to build distribution today? Because I think distribution
Right,
doesn't equals
distribution.
to content.
Yeah,
Yeah.
distribution's a tough one. The easy way is to have money and pay a bunch of influencers to talk to you
Mhm,
and talk about you, right? I have a list of AI influencers that you can
mhm,
watch who do exactly that. They get paid, they talk, right? And that
mhm,
if you pay 20 of them, they talk a lot.
mhm,
Higgsfield did a lot of that, right? They had
mhm,
1,000 influencers on X all talking about Higgsfield. That's one way to get seen. Now they went a little bit too far and pissed off a lot of people, but um, that pattern has been copied by many companies. Many companies are paying influencers to get news out and get seen. That's one way. Now, if you don't have a budget, that's harder. you
mhm,
know, and and it's a noisy world now. When I started my blog up, there was nobody, so it was easy to get found, right? um, and there was a lot of reasons for that back in the early days. Now you you have to be bringing value, bringing posts that people like. Wow, that was a great post. And I every once in a while you see somebody come along and just rise to the top because they're just better at content development than anybody else. AI is making that tougher because everybody now can create content with
mhm,
AI. Like I said, I have an AI now going through all of X and can write me a
mhm,
report and write me an economist style article, and it's good. The cognitive arc. If you have the bleeding edge of AI, it's
mhm,
really good. It's really good. If you're a journalist and not understanding what's coming at you, you better wake up because this. I think this is why the Washington Post laid off a lot of people. You don't need nearly as many journalists to create really good content now. But
mhm,
how do you get seen and get known?
mhm,
Networking, DMing. Um, yeah, but mostly it comes down to good content. If somebody DMs me with a shitty piece of content, I don't reshare it. If
mhm,
somebody DMs me with an amazing essay or an amazing
mhm.
video or an amazing new product, I'm all of a sudden paying attention, right? And so you start getting distributed. But there is a game to it a little bit, particularly if you're trying to introduce a new product to the world. You have to have a network of people who you can get a message through to and be credible about it, right?
I wonder,
And then
so
you
like,
gotta worry about getting onto TikTok and Instagram and Threads and Blue Sky and Mastodon,
yeah.
all the other places and get the professional news to put you in there on TV and stuff like that. But a lot of that does come down to money, in today's world.
So how do you buy the likeness? So I think the thing is, a lot of people have money, but like this is like I actually chatted with like few founders that they raise like mega rounds, like call it like few hundred millions and stuff like that. And then they're trying to figure out like the influencer play. But the problem is like they have tried, let's say, pay so and so like 3K and like let's post about this thing, blah blah blah. But the thing is like it doesn't really like sustain because their brand it doesn't really have. I think one thing is like they can buy into like well-known publication, but they wouldn't really be able to earn the trust. And then when you hit the press, like I mean, basically they were saying that like the press or like the journalists don't even want to cover them. They will cover because it's paid, but the thing is like they don't really have like a cohesive brand. And then the other part is like there's no story behind some of these SaaS company, right? It is kind of like a fast follow. Let's say so and so sold X company for $1 billion to a big company, and that I'm doing this thing, which is like a benchmarking to whatever that company was. So it's kind of like, like I wouldn't say a
There's
copycat, but
so
it's like
many. I mean, this is why I have 8,000 companies in my list, so I can really see what everybody's doing. And there's too many companies. There's particularly chasing AI agents right now. Everybody's got an AI agent platform. How does any one person test them all and see which one is really great? It's a tough thing. That's why if you have a product that's 10 times better than anybody else's and it's demonstratively better, that gets seen and tried and pushed. And you even if you have to pay to goose it, your product has to stand on its own. Because if it sucks, if it's not as good as GenSpark, well, people figure that out pretty quick and just get bored and don't pass it along, don't reshare it. Right now, if you come out with a product that's 10 times better than GenSpark, everybody's talking about it. Why? Because the first 40 people who read like my blog will try it, and then they'll go, "Shit, this is dope," and they reshare it. It's the resharing. It's the word of mouth that matters. It still does. It always did. Right.
I um I have another question on this. So one thing is when you are doing like how do you really actually create a brand story, right? So like I mean obviously like the Tesla, the Apple, like say less, but like I feel like the brand story of like other companies, so even like the bigger companies, sometimes it's like kind of like there's no brand story. It was just like it's a working product. Obviously it's product led growth or it's just like a great product, but it's like getting a lot less fans than like a Nike or Apple. Like when people think about these brands, they are actual brands, right? So like they can charge like a super premium on top of whatever was working. So just curious on your thought on like
It
how.
starts with your original slide deck, right? Number one, what makes you different? Why do you need to exist? Right? That should be on your first slide.
Mhm,
I'm I'm way better than Cursor at building an IDE, right?
mhm,
Number two, who's your team? Do you have a great team? Do you have a room of 40 PhDs? Right. Number three, what's the market, and how big is it? And and how likely are you to be able to get to that market? And what's your founding story? Why did you start this company? Right. And why do you have something that nobody else has? That's really what it comes down to. If you have something nobody else has, that's your brand story, right?
um I think like I want to challenge your thinking there because I think everybody can write a deck with, the differentiation, the team, the market, the founding story. But like, Uber and Lyft are like essentially, no offense, but the same product, right? So like, I guess like, how do you kind of like,
Uber was invented right in front of me in a Paris snowstorm, right? So Travis turned to Garrett and said, "Why can't we see where the cars are on our phones?" So we were stuck in a snowstorm in Paris, right? That's the brand story. That still is the brand story. You open up your Uber, you see where your car is, right? And it comes to you.
but
It's a
why is
simple thing.
it? I think like I'm just curious, like why is a brand will be superior than the competitor? Like whether it's like, yeah, like I mean, every brand has a story, right? Like, I mean, I'm sure Lyft have like I know it was like a Greek bus or whatever turned into like, like a call, right
Yeah,
sharing tool, but
Lyft had a little personality where Uber didn't in the early days. They had cars with
the
pink,
mustache thing.
yeah,
Yeah.
mustache on the cars, right? And they try to, and they were more service focused, but only in America, right? And Uber was just a better execution engine. They went from an idea in a Paris snowstorm to working I interviewed housewives in a slum in South Africa about Uber like 4 years after Uber started. That's execution. And yeah, that's part of the brand story too. It's like Uber is available worldwide to everybody, right?
Mhm.
But it still comes down to you can see your car on your phone, and people overthink the brand story too much. Go through Y Combinator. Even or like here, I have a brochure from Founders Inc. Right? Look at how short each item is about each company. Just a few words, 5 words, and I can look at this and figure out what your brand story is. I can figure out what you are, and if I'm interested, then I can go to your webpage and learn a lot more. Right? You got to distill it down to something that people can tell other people about.
I have like a few questions. One thing is like I feel like currently there's like two school of branding. So like like I guess like being in the media space, I've seen there is like the people that are targeting the mass market, which is like, on Twitter or X or whatever, like, or on LinkedIn or just like targeting the non-Silicon Valley people, but like for the mass. And then the other group of people is targeting a few elite people or like slash the Silicon Valley insiders. So which group do you think it's more powerful? Because it's not like the numbers game people, or would it be the people who are
Yeah.
targeting Elon Musk?
ICQ became the fastest growing social media thing of its age back in 1996.
Wait,
They
what is
told
it?
ICQ,
Oh,
ICQ.
ICQ?
Yeah, yeah. It was the fastest moving in 1996. They told 40 people about it. The 40 people they picked were people who were really influential in media, in online, right? And they spread it. Then everybody else got it. Goes, damn, this is cool. And they spread it more. You got to pick the right 40 people to start with. The right first 40 people that use your product. If they are crazy about your product, they're going to tell other people about it. So if you pick the right 40 people who have audience that listens to them, there we go. Right. It's not, you shouldn't go after the masses because you'll never convince, you could buy a Super Bowl commercial and spend $10 million. That's not enough. That'll get you a hit. That'll get you a big hit and get people to try it. But if you don't have the product, people will make fun of it the next morning. Go, I tried this new AI.com thing and it's lame. Do you see anybody talking about AI.com on X right now? They bought a Super Bowl commercial. They spent $70 million on their profile. But how many people are sticking around? How many people are talking about it? How many people are telling their friends and family, "Oh my God, this is the coolest thing I've ever downloaded." Right? It starts with telling a story starts with small numbers of people. not trying to do a Super Bowl commercial. If you're really good, yes, the Super Bowl commercial can add a lot of fuel to the fire. If you have a really great story and a really great product, everybody's talking about it, and you buy a Super Bowl commercial, then you're lighting the engines.
Mhm.
But first of all, you have to be in place to deal with the swarms of people that a Super Bowl commercial is gonna bring. You have to have the server infrastructure so you stay up. A couple of companies, they didn't stay up during the Super Bowl, right? That's a waste of effort. But the best stories always started with a few small conversations. Uber didn't start in the snowstorm going, we're going to be a global company in 5 years. No, he was just like, why can't we see where the cars are on our phones? That was it. It's not that hard. You have to find a product that people need to have fixed. And we needed that fixed. Turned out it was a company. It was a thing that with a lot of hard work became a worldwide company. But it didn't start that way when it started, right?
What is something that you feel like
Even Apple Computer, right? We talked about how Steve Wozniak didn't want to build a personal computer. He wanted to work at HP for the rest of his life, he told me. Right? He told them, can you build my personal computer? And they did their market research and they did all their surveys and they found nobody wants a personal computer. We're not going to sell enough of these to fire up, a major campaign and all that. They made him quit HP to start his company. It turned out there were a lot of people. They just didn't know how to ask the right question. They did the wrong kind of market research, right? Claudebot, OpenClaw, came out of the woodwork 6 weeks ago. Nobody knew what that was, but a few small people on X started trying it, using it, going, oh my God, this is really cool. My Mac Mini all of a sudden is really useful, right? And they talked about it. People like me saw it, reshared it, accelerated it. Now it's a global thing, 1 million users or something like that, and got bought by OpenAI all in 6 weeks.
do you feel like right now the AI is kind of like giving crypto? Because I feel like OpenClaw is so yesterday my friend was using the word like degen. So like it's kind of like it's giving the crypto degen vibe. So like obviously OpenClaw is very useful, but there's also like the safety issues associated with it. So it's kind of like, there is like a mixed feeling towards it. So what's your thought on the wave of like trends? Because coming from the crypto era.
Yeah, but to Peter's credit, every update, every week, he comes out with major new security fixes for it. So he's working on security. So
Mhm,
I don't look at where things are. I look at where things are going.
mhm,
And, yes, security this is very powerful technology, AI is.
mhm.
It can really do you harm. It can do the world harm. We should all be honest about that. But on the other hand, it's very powerful technology, and it's giving a lot of people ability to do things they never were able to do before, right?
Mhm. Um,
I look at the benefit, not necessarily the cost. I on all my report, I've had my AI write 5 reports about AI. Every time it talks about security and stuff you should do to make your CloudBot or OpenCloud more secure. And you know, if you're not technical, this is why you will put it on a Mac Mini that's separate from your other computer, and you be careful about what you give it access to and what you tell it to do, and what kinds of things you load on it. You got to be careful and maybe read a lot before you do that, right? Because I have a list of security professionals. Read the security professional list. Maybe that should be the first thing you should do. Hook up your CloudBot to the security list and read the security list, so you know all the problems that are hitting the OpenClaw, right?
um, do you have a Mac Mini? Do you use Mac Mini to do it or no?
I do. Yes.
What's your ideal setup? Like, is that like a Mac? You hook it up with Mac Mini and then create it?
My ideal
With
setup
you.
is Labanji Labs. I have way better AI than you can run on your cloud bot. So I'm using that mostly. The Mac Mini, I'm trying to keep up with everybody and see what's going on there. I have way better than that. So uh, I'm an early adopter of bleeding edge technology, and I have the first use of cognitive architecture to read X, and X is
Uh,
what I care about. I don't care about answering emails so much. Google Gemini does that pretty good.
I wanted to know more about, like, so when you were thinking about, I guess, like, when you're thinking about, oh, the trends, like, I mean, everyone is saying AI is the biggest trend, but AI has been here, like, since in, like, kind of like forever, not like forever, but, I think since
Siri
2015.
was launched in my house. That was the first consumer AI app. So I've been watching this since the very beginning in 2009. Yeah.
So what is something that you feel have longevity, and then what do you feel like is like a trend that's just gonna die? So like I feel like back in time when Web3 first came out, well, that's like the first like biggest trend I've personally experienced. But like, Mark Andre said like all these like kind of like well-known figures started like really backing it. Same as like, Mark Zuckerberg changing the company name to Meta, yada yada. So like just curious on like when you're seeing these like trends, like how do you identify a trend that's like having longevity? And then what are some things that you feel like will just kind of die?
Um, hmm. I look at people who use things. And in the Web3 space, I saw a lot of hype. I didn't see a lot of users. In the AI world, I see the opposite. I see a lot of hype and I see a lot of users. So I know AI ain't going anywhere anytime soon. And if anybody thinks they're not going to be hit by AI, they're sticking their head in the sand because it's changing every business from Coca-Cola down to a dentist with 5 employees. Right. So I watch, this is why I do so many interviews. I'd interviewed the dentist and I hang out with the AI team at Coca-Cola and a whole bunch of people in between. Um, I, trend I identify trends that are going to stick, you
Mhm.
know, and even Web3. I mean, I have the best crypto and Web3 lists on X, mostly because I hated the community and I wanted to get them off my feed. So I built a list and put them on my feed and muted them. But now that community actually starting, the Web3 community is starting to come along. With X402, they're able to do payments in a whole new way and able to reach people around the world that don't even have a credit card to pay for things, right? So I think the Web3 and the AI space are coming together and they're going to be a peanut butter and jelly a little bit. So that list is actually becoming much more useful. But I look at it, are you getting users? And are the users loving you? If they are, you're relevant. If they're not, you're not. The day Steve Jobs announced a new iPhone, I was interviewing Nokia's CEO, and he had all the relevance until that day. He had all the market share, he had all the distribution, and he pissed it all away because he refused to change. I look
Um,
at I look at people. I knew the iPhone was important because I stood in line for 36 hours to buy the first one at Steve Jobs' store. And I talked to a lot of people about their hopes and dreams about mobile phones. And I knew that Nokia was in trouble. Nokia didn't change. They
if
didn't, they
you're
didn't take the clue. And Alta Vista had all the relevance, all the market share. And then Google comes along and says, hey, try your favorite search. I tried my favorite search, which was Microsoft Net Meeting back then. First site was mine. Second site was Brian Sullivan's. On Alta Vista, first site was mine. Porn site was number 2. Brian Sullivan's was number 3. I said, what the hell did you just do? How did you get rid of the porn? This is what I'm talking about. If you can't demonstrate in 10 seconds why your product is 10 times better, you're not going to matter in this world. It's too fucking noisy. You have to have something that instantly gets recognized as that is dope. Right?
Um,
And if you do, that builds your story.
I think like the other part I'm curious about the I guess like the disruption is like for let's call it like an iPhone. Like, I mean, if you were like on the Nokia team, like what are something that you're gonna do? Like, because I feel like straight up
Start
copying the
over.
iPhone wouldn't be like
Start over. The right answer would have been that day. You know what? Those people in Cupertino have a great fucking idea. They made it really easy to use a web browser. That's what everybody wanted to do, anyways. We're going to start over. We're going to rebuild the Nokia phone to be better than that. If he had done that first day, we'd still all be on Nokia phones because Nokia had better screens, better radios, better cameras, better supply chain, better everything. But they fucked up. They stuck their head in the sand and they refused to change. The auto industry is doing this for the last 15 years. I talked to the Mercedes engineers in Sunnyvale where they do all the R&D. Why don't you have a computer? My first question was, why do you have a knob between the seats that controls the computer? Oh, our German executives don't want fingerprints on the glass. We have a touchscreen in the lab. They don't approve it. Well, that's stupid. Uh, how about a computer that always uploads and downloads? Oh, our executives in Germany killed that project because they're scared of getting hacked. We're a global company. We're too big. That's too much risk. Well, that's stupid. What about digital vents? Tesla has digital vents. You change them on the screen and they change around. By the way, that's going to be real important in the robotaxi. And already it's really important. I can go into depth on that. Oh, our executives in Germany did market research and found that people like buttons. That forced me to go around America to do the same research, and they were right. But you didn't ask the right question, which is what if the world changes and we show you a better way to do things? Unknown caller. Sorry.
um I
And that's what people can't get. They can't get new. They can't get that there's something that's going to come along like a OpenClaw that's better than what they're doing.
um I think like my curiosity is like I think when you say a big tech company or like a big company should like do from scratch, I mean, I feel like I think about this all day because as a person living in Silicon Valley every day, there's like things shifting, but like how do you identifying the momentum? Like I think the fear of like changing what you're doing is I think the problem is like if you're just straight up copying your competitor or like reinventing everything yada yada, like how do you identify what's your personal or like your company's strength? Because like if Nokia start copying Apple like play by play, they're
I
gonna
didn't
lose,
say
right?
copy. I said
Yeah.
start over.
Yeah, start over. Like what is the
Like
meaning of start over?
reevaluate everything from first principles and build up from there. Start over, build new teams, build maybe even spin out and start a new company because the real problem when because I study companies that fail, right? Why
Mhm.
why did Microsoft get the operating system business from IBM? Because Gary Kildall fucked it up. Gary Kildall had the best operating system in the world back then. He didn't close the deal with IBM because his customers were a noose around his neck and he couldn't change. And it's a problem. And Nokia had the same problem. Alta Vista had the same problem. They thought they had it locked up. They were arrogant. They thought they had 100% market share, and they thought the market share is what matters. It's not what matters at all. I don't give a shit if you have market share. I give a shit. Do you have a relevant product? Right now, the Claudebot, the OpenClaw, is relevant. Why? Because everybody wants to run models on their local computer. And the big companies are not paying attention to that. Well, OpenAI was, they bought it. They're like, that's a big distribution mechanism for AI. We're going to buy that. Now they have it. Now, when you see the device that OpenAI comes out with, it's going to have OpenClaw on it. And it's going to be relevant. Apple's going to have a similar device. Are they going to have a decentralized AI computer running on that camera? Unknown. And if they don't, they're not going to be relevant. I'm going to buy 3 of the OpenClaw ones and not 3 of the Apple ones.
I have do you have like a few more minutes, or like your hard stop 11:30?
Yeah. Let's see what's going on. Hold on.
So shout out to everyone who comments. Hi, Charles, Bill, First Agent Van.
My next meeting is at 12, so I can stay for a while.
Okay, let's do maybe like 5 more minutes. So let me also check my thing.
And
Sorry.
I think you have a bunch of questions or something.
Yeah. So I have another question on this. So like one thing is about I would say leadership. So like I think the thing about like what is your observation on like, Elon, Steve Jobs, Steve Wozniak, like all these people who actually made it versus like the people who are running the company, right? Like the Nokia or like whatever, like,
Or the
the
General
actual.
Motors.
Yeah. So when you're thinking about the differentiation between these people, like what is like the huge kind of like differences?
Understanding where things are going at a very deep level and
Mhm.
understanding how to execute and how to make it perfect or as good as possible. Each was given a different kind of technology and a different kind of gift. So it's hard to compare Steve Jobs to Elon Musk. Elon, I watched from day one. I had the first ride in the first Tesla with him. He got where transportation was going to go, and it's taken a while to fulfill his vision. But he saw that robotaxis are going to be important. Why do you think he did digital events? He spent a couple $100 per car. That's really hard for a car company to spend a couple $100 per car to put something like digital events in a car. In
Digital
a
vans.
robotaxi world, that matters because now when I get in a robotaxi, the vents are going to be set the way I wanted them to. My wife and I had so many fucking arguments in our Toyotas about vents because she hates air on her face. I love air on my face. So every time I'd get in her car, I'd change the vents to put air on my face. Every time she'd get back in the car, she would yell at me and change the vents. We don't have that argument anymore. Why not? Because Elon invested in digital vents. He saw the importance of that. Everybody else didn't. And now that's going to doom them all to lesser experience. Now in China, they're copying Elon and innovating in their own way. They have digital vents in their cars because they're not stupid. They're not like going to go backward. They saw that this is the right way to do it. Elon is the only, Mark Benioff wrote the foreword of one of my books because I got ahead of him. Steve Wozniak wrote the foreword of one of my books because I got ahead of him. I can't get ahead of Elon. I've tried. He just is thinking 20 years into the future and executing at a level that I've never seen anybody execute before. He hires really amazing people and empowers them. I met the 4th employee of SpaceX, and I was like, tell me about the team that lands the rockets back on the Earth, right? Tell me about the team that wrote the code to do that, because that's pretty cool. And that's really what made their company. And the guy said, that wasn't a team. It was one guy. I'm like, what? Yeah, one guy wrote all that code. I'm like, what? Yeah, one guy wrote the code. He was working with a lot of people, but one guy could keep all the details of how the fins work and all the code works as it comes back to Earth. Like, that's why Lockheed Martin hasn't been able to do it. They haven't been able to pick the one guy. Elon can pick the one guy because he's really smart at understanding talent, right? And hiring talent and empowering that guy and say, hey, you write the code. Very few people have that ability, right? I don't. I can't hire an engineer. Give me 100 engineers to hire. I wouldn't know how to pick the one guy to write the code for the rocket.
One more question before we jump into like a 30-second fire round. Is I'm curious about your thoughts on like, how do you kind of like know when to re-innovate and then when it's like the things that you need to do? Because sometimes like I feel like when you're making decisions, there is always like I think there's two things, right? Like one is like you pick a strategy, then you go after the strategy, but someone else pick like, maybe your second strategy is supposed to be, uh, you know, I think when you're picking like, going to route A that will get you further because of your unique advantages, blah, blah, blah. And then person B wrote like the other route, and then they're going faster on a different route. And to a degree, you both are heading to the same direction, but you're always thinking on the back end that like, oh, what if I just pick the other route, yada yada. But on the other hand, I feel like, most startup founder will pick a route that they feel like instinctively like that's going to be their route, right? It's kind of like giving, Android versus Apple. Like honestly, like, I think there's like a very small amount of people on the in the universe can actually afford Apple. Well, it's more and more, but like on the other hand, like more people using Android versus Apple if you don't live in Silicon Valley, right? So like in
Hold
general,
on, hold on, hold on, hold
is that
on.
is that incorrect or
I,
no?
I that is a true statement. But
Right.
I hung out with the guy who runs technology at Coachella, big music festival, and we're walking around the
Right.
field. And I'm like,
Yeah.
tell me about the transactions that are going on the field right now. What are you learning? He goes, they're all Apple. I'm like, what? They're 85% Apple. I'm like, oh, no. Apple only has 10% market share. How can it be 85%, 90% Apple? He goes, well, think about my customers. My customers are fairly wealthy people
Yeah,
who
they're
have an
like
extra.
yeah, exactly. So I'm
I
saying
know,
in
but that's what drives the world is money. And
uh
so if you quote, everybody has an Android phone. Yeah, everybody in a slum in Africa has an Android phone because they can't afford an iPhone. But when you go to the money and you go into Ritz Carlton, or you go to the business class of a jet, or you go to Coachella, they all have Apple. It's the money that matters. When you're an app developer and you are choosing a platform to develop for, are you going to go for the money or are you going to go for the poor people? The
I
Apple App Store is more profitable for developers than the Android App Store. Why is that? Because the people with money have Apple. The
I
market share doesn't
okay.
matter. Stop looking at market share. Start looking at where business actually comes from. Who actually is going to buy your product and pay money for it? And when you have an advertiser, who is going to pay for an advertisement on your app or your service to reach somebody? It's going to be the people with the money. This is what people don't get. You have to pick your customer properly. Don't look at
Um
market share. Look at where the money is. Look at who is actually influential in society. What product are they using? They're the ones that are driving everything.
okay, so I think like I have like a
Go to
thought
the
on
Coca-Cola AI team and have dinner with them. What are you guys using? Right?
uh
That's influence. Those
but
guys have millions of employees. When they pick somebody, it's going to be a big sales day.
uh I agree. But I think the thought leadership is built on top of the people with who are less influential, right? So like you're influential because of a lot of followers follow you because they think you are the thought
Because I
leader.
had dinner with the Coca-Cola AI team. No other human being did. I was there.
I'm not talking about like the Coca-Cola AI
No, but
team.
that's where my
Yeah.
thought leadership comes from. Nobody else has dinner with the Coca-Cola AI team.
I think my thought is like, yeah, so like, but people following you because of you have the access or whatever. Like it's harder to influence Elon Musk, right? So like, it's like they are. I think like your influence supposed to be generated through. Yes, you hung out with like the other elites people in your circle, and then you kind of send the message to outward to the rest of the universe, right? So my curiosity is like, isn't that supposed to be like that's where the scale come from because of like people who follow you slash like the people who are on the outer circle of the ecosystem, or no?
Mm, followers only matter if they actually take action, if they actually buy, if they actually use, if they actually reshare, if they actually do some action. That's all that matters, really. I hang out with people who make action happen in the world. Whether my thing has influence doesn't matter to me. I'm just trying to hang out with the Coca-Cola team and find out what the hell is actually going on. I'm going to the robot companies in Silicon Valley and soon in China, figure out what the hell is going on. And I've done a lot of work in China already to prepare for that trip. I hang out with people who actually make action happen. I go to a lot of things like Founders Inc., which had 100 startups, and I watch what startup grabs a crowd. That's a signal that that company has something that people want. That's all I'm watching for.
Okay, so
Among
last
other things, but that's really what I'm watching for. Is why did I have the first report about OpenClaw? Nobody else did. Why? Because I was watching the screen and kept seeing people. I just loaded an OpenClaw on my Mac Mini, and my God, this is cool. I'm watching 35,000 people in the AI community. I built the list for everybody to follow. They're all public. You can put them in an X Pro and watch the same damn thing going on. Nobody else does. I did.
okay, so love that. I want to be mindful of the time. Maybe we'll do a quick 1 minute fire round. What's your favorite book?
Right now I'm reading Running Down the Dream by Bill Gurley, who was one of the investors in Uber and
Okay, yeah,
fucked
yeah.
that up.
He's
But
an OG.
I don't, oh man, what are books that have influenced me? Dan Ariely on how humans perceive things. He's real influential. Dale Carnegie, How to Make Friends and
Oh
Influence.
god. Oh god. The OG.
I mean, you know, um, I don't know. There's been books on positioning. Guy Kawasaki wrote a great book on how to write a slide deck for a
Oh,
startup.
yeah, he was on our show like maybe 2 weeks ago or something
Yeah,
like that.
they threw me in a cell at San Quentin prison with him, which was highly
Wow.
throw the evangelist from Microsoft and the evangelist from Apple in the cell and lock the door.
Um, who would you invite to your dinner party?
What's that?
Who would you invite to your dinner party?
I mean, if I could get anybody, I'd love to have Donald Trump. Not because I like the guy, but he's president.
Who made the biggest impact in your career?
Steve Wozniak. I met him in a parking lot at the community college, West Valley Community College. Got an interview with him. Studied every morning with him for a semester, and talked him out of $40,000 worth of Macintoshes for a journalism department. And he stayed friends with me for a long time and still is. Yeah, he's had the biggest impact. Plus, I built his Apple II motherboards as a child. I was Apple's first child laborer back in 1978. That's really how I got my start in understanding new people, new things, and the people who create them.
Where can we find you outside of work?
Outside of work, walking around the neighborhood with my kids, going to national parks, going on road trips, going to dinners with my friends.
Wholesome.
Yeah. Don't have a lot of hobbies because I just love studying new
Yeah, your
things.
work is
I
your
mean,
hobby, I feel like.
Well, to me, it's not work, playing with new toys like Vitcher's glasses or, a Mac Mini and loading it up with OpenClaw or whatever. To me, that's my hobby and my what I do. It's drives everything in my head. I'm constantly thinking about the future and dreaming about where I might use a pair of, augmented reality glasses. What would I do with these?
Mhm,
What do people need to do with these? How is this going to change the world? And that gets me to ask questions of innovators, like, what are you doing with slam maps on the glasses? How did the glasses see the world?
mhm,
How can they remember everything? Right?
mhm,
A tree hacks. That's what I asked one team. It's like, all right, I see you're doing that. You guys are building a slam map of the house. Okay, how does that work? What's different about your slam map than I've seen before? Right? Oh, our segmentation's better. Right? That
mhm,
gives me insights. And that's it's hard to say there's any one thing in my head that gets me to see the insights, but it's like hung out with Matt Musnick 8 years ago, and he was trying to build a segmentation engine and sold it to Niantic, right?
mhm,
Now the segmentation engines are getting like sick. Like it can segment every freaking thing on your desk or in the world around you now, right?
mhm,
And so understanding how things are cooking
mhm,
is real important as well. It's one reason I got into world models before anybody
mhm,
else. I did the first
mhm.
interview with Oliver Cameron, who has a new real-time world model. Why? Because I dream about the holodeck, and he had an answer to the holodeck, and I said I need to interview that guy.
Mhm. I love that. Um, well, basically, neither of us has any hobbies because it's our work. Or I
Yeah,
can't imagine
I
you.
mean, hobbies. I don't have hobbies. I should get a hobby. Maybe
Yeah, get a
some hot.
hobby.
Uh,
Draw something.
Linda Wyman, who started lynda.com, she has a room of 3D clay printers, and she does
Wow.
pottery in a new way, right?
Wow.
If I had a hobby, that'd probably be attractive to me.
Love that. Well, Robert, thank you so much for coming on the show today. It was such a fun conversation. I know that you have another call in literally 10 minutes.
Yeah,
You should probably eat something, by the way.
no, I'm fine.
Um, well, thank you so much. It was such a fun chat. And thank you for the hundreds of people who joined. It's been such a fun conversation.
Yeah, watch me on X because I'm about to ship something really crazy for watching the X world. By the way, if you're on LinkedIn, you're in the wrong place. X is where the AI industry is. It's way fucking better than LinkedIn for reading. LinkedIn is great for networking, right? Because
True.
everybody in San
That's true.
Francisco, hey, can you scan my LinkedIn code? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Here you go.
Yeah.
Connect it.
I think it's like two different things, right? Like X
Yeah.
is like where you get the news, but like LinkedIn is where you kind of like connect with other people, stay in touch, yada yada.
It's,
So
it's a great Rolodex. I have 13,000 people connected there, and it's like a who's who of the AI, of the tech
mhm.
industry. Yeah.
I'm glad I'm one of these 13,000 people. Yeah, made it before the rest. But thank you so much, Robert. Super
Thank you
appreciate
so much. It
it.
was fun and got a little worked up because,
I know.
I part of that anger is like, um, every time there's a paradigm shift, every time people resist and stick their head in the sand. And when I wrote my book about social media, it was before X started, before LinkedIn, right? And Gary Vaynerchuk and I did keynotes together back in 20 years ago. And we'd be like, hey, look at this new thing called Facebook, or look at this new thing, right? Like X. Um, uh, and people would line up in the aisles to argue with us. I'll never use that. That's the stupidest idea I've ever heard. And I hear this every fucking time there's a paradigm shift. Another one right now. I'm talking to the world about brain computer interfaces. I'd never put one of those on. That's very strange and very weird. Autonomous cars. I love to drive. I don't want to ever get in a car. One guy in Kansas told me, I'm a narcissistic control freak, and there's no fucking way a computer's gonna drive me around, right? Well, I know he's wrong, because people change when something better comes along. People used to say that about horses when cars came along.
Oh God.
I'll never take one of those contraptions. They're noisy and they're lame and they break. My horse doesn't break, and right.
Yeah. Crazy.
Yeah, a million people protested when Mark Zuckerberg turned on the news feed. 1 million people. They were all wrong. They're all wrong. Every time resistance happens, they're always wrong. It's necessary, but it's always wrong. And people are resisting AI right now. You have no fucking idea how powerful this is and how deeply it's going to change every fucking business and every person's life. I mean, people listening to me know that, but yeah, there's a lot of resistance right now.
Yeah, I feel like I live in a bubble that like it's like the opposite of resistance. It's like everyone jump in regardless of what's going on.
The bigger the resistance, the bigger the disruption, and the bigger everybody's going to have to change, and everybody's going to have to change. That's the fact. I mean, the reason I visited a dentist's office up in Mill Valley that automated their whole business, they told me their sales are up, their customer sat numbers are up, their employee morale is up. They didn't fire anybody.
How do you find them though? How do you find the dentist office in Mill Valley? Do you live in Mill Valley?
I find people on X, because people start talking, hey, check this, or people send me a DM and say, yeah, I got a new, I see you talking about AI thing. I got a new AI thing to show you. Right?
I love that. Well, I feel like you, I really love your enthusiasm after years, after years, after years. I feel like it's easy to do it when you're like young and hungry, blah, blah, blah. But like, I think it's harder to like maintain the same level of enthusiasm towards like life in general.
It's, technology has always changed my life since I was a child. I saw this when I was 13, when Apple II came out. This is going to change my life. Everybody else, what? Why do I need a computer? My son's father, grandfather told me I'll never use a computer. And he was right. He died never touching a computer. That kind of resistance just is crazy to me.
Well, on that note, Robert, thank you again for coming to the show.
Thank you.
Such a fun chat.
Thanks. Got me all worked up. I'm ready for the week now.
Yeah, y'all need to join his like other stream right after this. I don't know where it is, but follow him on X and join whatever that other stream is.
Love.
Amazing. Okay, let me quickly end stream.